John Taylor, a no-nonsense supermarket manager, believed he had everything under control until the day he humiliated a shopper at the checkout, unknowingly setting the stage for a confrontation that would turn his entire world upside down. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from. Let's dive in. John Taylor was known as a tough but efficient supermarket manager. He had been running the store for over 15 years and took pride in his no-nonsense approach. His team respected him for getting things done, but they also feared his temper. It wasn't uncommon for John to lose his cool when things didn't go according to plan. He was a man who demanded order, and the smallest slip-up could set him off. One Tuesday afternoon, the store was particularly busy. People shuffled through the aisles, grabbing last-minute items. There was a sense of urgency in the air, with carts filled to the brim and long checkout lines. As John surveyed the store from his post near the customer service desk, something caught his eye. A woman at the self-checkout lane, struggling with Miss Sarah. She had just moved to town a few weeks ago and was still getting used to the supermarket. Sarah wasn't familiar with self-checkout systems and had been facing trouble scanning her items. Her patience was wearing thin, but she kept trying to figure it out on her own. All she wanted was to get her groceries and head home. John, however, wasn't in the mood for patience. He approached Sarah, his footsteps heavy with frustration. "Ma'am, do you need help?" he asked, though his tone suggested it wasn't a genuine offer of assistance. Sarah looked up startled. "I'm just trying to—" "You're holding up the line," John interrupted. "This isn't rocket science. Either figure it out, or let someone else do it for you." The customers in line turned to stare, some whispering amongst themselves. Sarah felt a rush of embarrassment flood her cheeks. She fumbled with her groceries, unsure of what to say. It wasn't her fault the machine was giving her trouble, but John had made her feel incompetent in front of the entire store. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her voice barely audible. John crossed his arms. "Next time, use the regular checkout if you can't handle this." Sarah wanted to defend herself, but she felt too humiliated to argue. She quickly bagged the rest of her items and left the store, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Once in her car, she exhaled, tears brimming in her eyes. This wasn't the first time she'd been treated poorly since moving here, but it hurt just the same. Weeks passed, and Sarah continued to shop at the supermarket, though she avoided John whenever she could. She didn't want another confrontation, and besides, she had bigger things on her mind. What John didn't know was that Sarah wasn't just an ordinary shopper. She had recently been promoted to a regional director position at a large corporate firm. As fate would have it, her firm had acquired the supermarket chain where John worked. Sarah's role was to oversee the integration of new policies and ensure that each store in the region met the company's standards. The day Sarah returned to the supermarket, this time in a more professional capacity, John had no idea what was coming. He was standing at the same customer service desk, barking orders at one of the newer employees when he saw a group of corporate executives entering the store. He straightened his posture and smoothed his shirt. These visits were rare, and John was always eager to make a good impression. The executives entered the store with Sarah at the lead. She was dressed in a sleek suit, her expression calm but focused. John squinted, unsure if he recognized her. There was something familiar about her, but he couldn't quite place it. He watched as she made her way toward him. "Good afternoon," Sarah greeted him, her voice steady and professional. "Afternoon," John replied, still trying to figure out why she seemed familiar. "Can I help you with something?" Sarah smiled politely. "I'm Sarah Matthews, the new regional director. I'll be overseeing operations here for the foreseeable future." John felt a chill run down his spine. Sarah Matthews? The name sounded familiar, but it wasn't until she extended her hand that the realization hit him. She was the woman from the self-checkout incident, the same woman he had publicly shamed weeks ago. His face flushed with a mix of shock and embarrassment. "Ah, yes. Nice to meet you," John stammered, shaking her hand. Sarah's expression remained unreadable, but there was a glint in her eye that told John she hadn't forgotten what had happened. He swallowed hard, trying to maintain his composure. For the first time in years, John felt vulnerable in his own store. Over the next few days, Sarah spent time reviewing the store's operations, meeting with employees, and making notes for improvement. She was thorough and professional, never once mentioning their previous encounter. However, John couldn't shake the feeling that she was quietly assessing him, remembering how he had treated her. One afternoon, Sarah called a meeting with the store's management team, including John. They gathered in the small conference room at the back of the store, the air thick with anticipation. John sat at the head of the table, fidgeting with his pen, while Sarah stood at the front, reviewing her notes. "First, I want to commend the team for maintaining a well-organized store," Sarah began. "However, there are some areas that need improvement, particularly in customer service." John's heart skipped a beat. He knew where this was going. "Customer service is the backbone of any retail operation," Sarah continued. "It's not just about efficiency. It's about how we treat the people who walk through our doors. They're the reason we're in business." John shifted in his seat, feeling the weight of her words. Sarah looked directly at him. "I expect every member of this team, especially those in leadership positions, to treat customers with respect and patience, regardless of the situation. We never know what someone might be going through, and a little kindness can make all the difference." The room was silent. John could feel the eyes of his colleagues on him, though no one said a word. Sarah's message was clear, and it was aimed directly at him. After the meeting, John approached Sarah as she was gathering her things. "Miss Matthews," he began, his voice hesitant, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how I treated you that day. It was unprofessional, and I regret it." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, her expression softening. "Thank you for the apology, John. I appreciate it. But remember, it's not about me. It's about how you treat everyone who walks into this store." John nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "I'll do better," he promised. "I hope so," Sarah replied, offering a small smile. "Because people will remember how you made them feel, long after they've left the store." In the weeks that followed, John made a conscious effort to change his approach. He became more patient with customers and his employees, taking the time to listen and help rather than rush to judgment. It wasn't easy, but he was determined to prove to himself and to Sarah that he could be better. As for Sarah, she continued to oversee the store's operations, but her focus was always on the bigger picture. She knew that real change took time, and she was willing to invest in it, both in the store and in people like John. In the end, it wasn't the corporate policies or the daily operations that mattered most. It was the relationships they built along the way. And as John learned, sometimes the most important lessons come from the people you least expect. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Click on the video now to watch. We appreciate your support, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.